Good morning. I'm Cheryl Atkinson. Welcome to Full Measure. We begin with for-profit colleges allegedly preying on our military troops. Veterans with benefits provided by your tax dollars who have the desire to build a new life become targets, even given a name by some college recruiters, cash cows. Today, about 300,000 vets get up to $21,000 a year in GI Bill money. In all, 1,800 colleges, many of them for-profits, have received more than 20 billion GI Bill tax dollars. With so many billions in the mix, it's easy to see why some colleges use high pressure and allegedly dishonest tactics. And now taxpayers are about to be on the hook for alleged misconduct by the schools. As a U.S. Marine, Brian Babcock fought on the front lines in Iraq, including the Second Battle of Fallujah in 2004. His post-military plan, police work. He used his GI Bill money to pursue a criminal justice degree at the for-profit college ITT Tech.
ITT Technical Institute, education for the future.
How'd you hear about it?
I saw a commercial on TV that kind of got me interested in them.
And ITT Tech was there, always in the back of my mind.
ITT was definitely a good fit for me after I left the military life.
Babcock says ITT promised that police agencies everywhere would accept the degree. The cost, $70,000, would far exceed his GI Bill grant at the time, but ITT made it easy for Babcock to borrow. He says they even helped him fill out paperwork for student loans. Then, after his third year, a startling discovery.
We applied to 22 or 23 police departments.
And what did they say?
All of them said that they did not recognize ITT's degrees or their credits.
And what thoughts went through your head when you heard this?
I was angry that I'd spent all this money, student loans, and turns out that the degree, if I would have finished there, would have been pretty much worthless.
It's a story told by thousands of vets who attended for-profit colleges where students are more likely to drop out, default on their loans, or graduate in dire debt without a useful degree. Of 8 for-profits that get the most GI Bill funds, 7 have been targets of inquiries for possible violations, including deceptive or misleading recruiting. Together, they received nearly $1 billion tax dollars over 2 school years. One of those companies is DeVry University, where Chris Nywayne was hired as the school recruited vets under the new GI Bill. A veteran himself, Nywayne was assigned to Team Camo, where he says managers urged the sales team to use high-pressure tactics on troops who sometimes weren't suited for college.
Working in the industry at that time truly reminded me of the film Glengarry Glen Ross.
You close or you hit the bricks.
Well, there's a scene where a corporate sales manager is brought in to improve the performance of the sales floor, played by Alec Baldwin.
Sitting out there waiting to give you their money. Are you going to take it?
And that was similar at the company.
If Team Camo dared to let veterans suspend class while in combat, like those in the National Guard, Nywayne says management called them on the carpet.
The company didn't care. They just wanted to make sure that they stayed in their classes so the university could continue to be paid and they would continue to be on the enrollment.
Even if they were in a combat zone that didn't make sense for them to try to go to college on the computer.
Yes. Management's guiding wisdom was, to be frank, get their ass in class.
Nywayne showed us today's sales tactics at work. In a chat on DeVry's website, he asks about costs and benefits, but can't get direct answers.
I can have a representative from our military admissions team reach out to you. It's fairly frustrating that I ask these questions and I can't get answers. Rather, they're trying to sort of tie me in and get me closer so they can work towards selling the school.
DeVry officials declined an on-camera interview, but said DeVry has a long history of serving veterans and military personnel dating back to the 1940s, and we offer quality academics and student services with flexibility to meet their busy schedules. Former Congressman Steve Gunderson leads the Maine National For-Profit College Trade Group.
If anybody has a bad outcome, and certainly if a veteran has a bad outcome, that's a problem, and we want to solve that.
He says for-profits are under assault from opponents and competitors.
I have never before seen a situation where a sector is the target of attacks for ideological reasons. I mean, there simply are people who do not believe the private sector ought to be involved in the design and delivery of education.
Fair enough. But is there any doubt in your mind that some schools have used unfair, unethical, or even dishonest tactics?
There is no doubt in my mind that there are bad schools in every sector of higher education who have engaged in inappropriate conduct for various reasons, whether it be athletics or whether it be admissions or it be something else.
Gunderson says the industry is improving. A Government Accountability Office report found for-profits catering to military students actually beat public schools in one area, higher graduation rates. With billions flowing to for-profits under investigation, President Obama dispatched a warning at Fort Stewart Army Base about any for-profits that may be preying on the troops.
It's not right. They're trying to swindle and hoodwink you. They don't care about you, they care about the cash.
But as federal scrutiny surged, the industry has countered with Washington lobbyists and campaign cash. Since 2010, for-profit colleges have poured nearly $10 million into campaign contributions and spent $41 million on lobbying, according to the Center for Responsive Politics.
That's how you really win friends and influence people on Capitol Hill. The for-profit colleges and universities have friends in high places.
That implies some members of Congress, you think, are bought and paid for on this issue.
I would say this, they are influenced by it.
Senator Dick Durbin has pushed one bill after another to fight for-profit college fraud, only to see the bills get watered down and voted down.
If these schools that are enticing kids into loans for educations that are worthless had some, quote, skin in the game, some responsibility for default, they'd think twice about it, but they don't. They could care less.
It turns out taxpayers have the most skin in the game. In June, the federal government said it will forgive loans for students at Corinthian College, putting taxpayers on the hook for up to $3.5 billion. Corinthian shut down in May amid fraud accusations, which the company denied. And the feds may wipe out loans at other problematic colleges. In May, the federal government charged Babcock's alma mater, ITT Tech, with fraud, alleging it concealed financial information from investors. ITT is fighting the charges but declined our interview request. Gunderson says he doubts Babcock's ITT degree would have really been useless.
I am willing to say that if he graduated from an accredited criminal justice program, there are many police agencies that would hire him. Maybe not the one that he wanted to go to, but there are many that will, and evidence all across the country shows that.
Babcock gave up on the ITT degree and his dream of police work. Instead, he's focused on warning other vets and working to pay down his $40,000 student loan debt.
I think it's a shame that they prey on men and women that volunteered to protect this country and that earned a benefit with their service, and then ITT and the other for-profit schools are just trying to take that.
The Defense Department recently banned the University of Phoenix from enrolling new service members, alleging a pattern of violating policies designed to protect military students. Senator Durbin says ITT is now facing investigations by the Justice Department and 18 attorneys general. Coming up, the new enrollment period for Obamacare has started, but with co-ops collapsing, a lot of people are going to find fewer and more expensive health care options.
Or said, we'll try Nevada House Co-op, was, I guess, the worst mistake we did.
Last week, we looked at the many challenges facing Obamacare. The Obamacare co-ops are nonprofit insurers that were intended to help provide competition, and they received $2.5 billion in low-interest loans at taxpayer expense, but they're falling like dominoes. This week, Utah joined the list, making 10 failures out of 23, and some predict the majority of the co-ops could flatline by the end of the year. Scott Thuman went to one state where their co-op is going under.
Yeah, big problems, Cheryl. We went to Nevada to talk to people who joined the co-ops because of their own already rising health care costs, and now find themselves in a worse place than where they started.
The doctor said, I said, am I going to be in pain? He said, yes, you're going to be in a lot of pain. you might not be able to work, and there's nothing I can do for you. You can pay cash out of pocket, but it's $800.
So it was either be in pain or owe a lot of money you don't have.
Yes.
That was 30-year-old Stephen Mangione's medical nightmare. The meat grinder at Larry's Great Western Meats in Nevada was battling back pain and engaged in a second battle with his provider. Is that scary?
Yes. To wake up to find out that you're not going to get your medicine the next day that you need and you're depending on to get you to the next day, yes.
He's talking about the Nevada Health Co-op where he gets insurance, though not for long. Nevada is now one of 23 co-ops created by the Affordable Care Act, known to most as Obamacare. It is also one that is failing and will shut down at the end of the year. It's a number that's growing.
And so here we are just 2 years into Obamacare, and they're dropping like flies, and no one is surprised.
Robert Leshevsky is a health industry analyst.
The federal government is going to spend more than $2 billion on this really stupid idea that turns out never worked. It was awfully naive to think that you could put people in business in the most problematic part of the market, and they were going to take on the insurance giants and show them how it was done. I mean, this is just a government fiasco.
He says the co-ops faced a stacked deck from the beginning.
Insurance companies generally don't make money in the individual market. They make it elsewhere. They make it in Medicare. They make it in employer-based care. So the co-ops could only be in the problematic part of the market no one's ever made money in. And then the co-ops could only take financing from the federal government. They didn't have the ability, they don't have the ability to go raise more capital outside of the government.
Eli Khoury is the owner of Great Western Meats. Earlier this year, he signed up with the Nevada program for himself and his workers, including Mangione. The problems were evident almost immediately.
Every month, our insurance used to cancel. The first few months, I saw like, are we paying the bills on time? Come here, check this system. No, this bill is being paid, checks are cleared. Call them up, said, oh, sorry, we have an error in the system. We have to reinstate everybody end of the month. And now we're having problems with doctors now.
So doctors didn't want to see you because you were using the co-op?
Yeah, they would prefer something else because they tell they feel bad for you, when they give you the look oh, is that a problem?
In fact, so many problems from the taxpayer-funded program that in August, the director announced, based on challenging market conditions, the board made a painful decision to wind down operations at the end of this year.
I feel bad because it's just the economy, the people that they're hired, and it's local. It's co-op, it's non-profit. Yeah, of course, I feel bad to see a non-profit company closing when other companies are cashing up billions and trillions of dollars. I think they probably had to work it up better. You cannot offer something for free. Even if it's a non-profit, you have to cover your minimums. And I think they did it wrong from day one. When you set up something and you start losing money, it's wrong.
Now Khoury, his employees, and about 500,000 other co-op customers across the country are scrambling to find new health care by the end of the year.
When I heard the news, there was close and said, oh, okay, it's not a big surprise because, the way they're operating, I don't think a lot of people are going to take that.
The government is now closely monitoring the remaining co-ops, even putting them on informal watch lists and warning them to take corrective action, but many feel they may be too far gone to resuscitate.
What are they monitoring them for at this point? What can they do?
Well, they're really just kind of trying to tighten the reins a little bit on an industry that for the most part seems to be self-governing, but failing to do so well.
One additional note from our friends at the Daily Caller, they say 18 of the 23 co-ops paid their top executives huge salaries ranging from $263,000 to $587,000. This as some of them were going under.
Yeah, and not just a problem, but possibly, Cheryl, a violation of federal law and the Obamacare rules, which prohibit excessive executive compensation. So a lot more to look into there.
Thank you so much, Scott. Even before we aired this story, the mere preview of our report created outrage on social media. We thought we'd share a few messages that you shared with us. A former prosecutor tweeted, "Our health insurance went from $763 to $1,380 per month." Kat chimed in too, tweeting, "We came up craps. Already poor Consumers Choice Plan closing, replacement 30% higher, no subsidy." Nancy offered this comment, "That's a ridiculous deductible. Why even have insurance?" And Ben claims he's lucky. "My premium is almost flat last 3 years because benefits keep getting cut." and a tearful emoji to illustrate his point. We thank you for all your comments. Remember, you can always connect with us using Twitter at FullMeasureNews. Coming up, lawmakers on Capitol Hill passed a budget bill that would suspend the debt limit. What does that mean? Well, think of it this way. How many concerts would Taylor Swift have to perform to make a dent in our national debt? That answer just ahead. In this week's Follow the Money, there was a rush of breathless coverage earlier this week when a military blimp broke loose in Maryland. Less so when another bloated object launched from Capitol Hill. It was the Bipartisan Budget Act of 2015, and it's huge. Romina Baccia is a deputy director at Heritage Foundation. Put it into perspective for us. What does this deal mean for taxpayers?
It means higher spending. In the first 3 years, there's about $85 billion in additional spending. Those are the red bars in the graph. And then any spending cuts or revenues to pay for that don't really show up until much later in the decade, so it's uncertain whether they will ever appear. It also raises the debt limit by $1.5 trillion, and our debt is already larger than the size of the entire economy at more than $18 trillion. It makes that problem worse, too.
Wow. So who would you say are the big winners and losers?
The Obama administration clearly got the better end of this deal. They got everything they asked for: more domestic, more defense spending, bust through the spending caps, and a clean debt limit increase, but worse yet, a debt limit increase with additional deficit spending. How can you make it any worse?
Looking at the size of this, because it's kind of hard to grasp how huge that is, we put into perspective with some graphics here. Taylor Swift, everybody knows Taylor Swift, earns $80 million a year, at least that's what I'm told for this year. How does the U.S. debt interest compare to her salary?
Just to pay 1 day of interest on our current debt, she would have to perform every single day for 3 years.
Floyd Mayweather, the boxer, he earned, we're told, $300 million in 2015 for something like 2 fights. What about that?
He would have to box every day for 331 years to pay off just the current debt.
Hate to be on the other end of that fight. And then NFL quarterback Aaron Rodgers, he earns over $1 million per game. What would he have to do to pay about a year interest on the current debt?
He would have to play 400,000 games just to pay 1 year of interest on the debt. That isn't even chipping down on the debt yet.
That is incredible. Thanks so much for putting it in perspective for us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Ahead, our Campaign Incredible look at the week, including the debate debacle.
Is this a comic book version of a president? Very nice.
No answer. Well, you want me to answer that question? I'm happy to answer that question.
Getting access to government files is supposed to be easy thanks to the Freedom of Information Act. Known as FOIA, the law allows the public to request access to government documents, and within about 30 days, the feds should hand over the files. But when it comes to answering FOIA requests in a timely fashion, how do top federal agencies actually measure up?
But what this shows is the overwhelming majority of agencies either got an F, a D, or a C.
It's a report card on government transparency. The watchdog group Cause of Action has graded 15 cabinet-level agencies on their track record of responding to FOIA requests within 20 days as required by law. The Department of Education, Homeland Security, and Treasury all flunked. The reason, they didn't even bother to turn in their annual reports required by law that summarize how quickly they answered FOIA requests. Other major agencies that did provide summaries didn't score much better.
With the Clinton email scandal, you have the State Department getting a D, you have the Justice Department getting a D, you have the Department of Energy, which unsurprisingly had a major scandal, getting a D as well.
So who's doing it correctly? Cause of Action says only 2, the Interior Department and Veterans Affairs. They aced the test by responding promptly to most FOIA requests in 2014. Ironically, the VA scored well the very year it took fire for covering up lengthy wait times that led to veterans' deaths.
But if you think about it, part of the reason why the public and the reporting community knows about the VA scandal is because of the easy ability to get documents. I mean, that should show why transparency is actually a good thing for reforming federal agencies.
On his first day in office, President Obama promised to make transparency a top priority.
Starting today, every agency and department should know that this administration stands on the side not of those who seek to withhold information, but those who seek to make it known.
But in practice, the Obama administration has set new records for delaying and denying FOIA requests and censoring results. To this day, the government has still not answered almost 160,000 requests from 2014.
This report is indicating that our government's not measuring up on transparency, and that is a key issue because it's not surprising that Americans distrust their government when their government's not being transparent.
Republican presidential candidates met for their third debate this week, and it seems the majority of the contenders held their sharpest criticism for the moderators. In case you missed it, our Campaign Incredible brings you the week in about 60 seconds.
Did any of you see the Republican debate last night? Yeah.
Hold on. I got no answer.
Okay, all right, you want me to answer that question? I'm happy to answer the question.
Is this a comic book version of a presidential campaign?
It's not a comic book, and it's not a very nicely asked question the way you say that.
Bernie Sanders making a play for the women's vote on The View today.
I was told that I didn't smile enough.
What is it? He's such a nice guy. And he said, oh, I'm never going to attack. But then his poll numbers tanked. That's why he's on the end. And he got nasty.
You find a Democrat that's for cutting taxes, cutting spending $10, I'll give him a warm kiss.
What's another candidate in the mix? I guarantee you Carly knows more about being president than some of the folks who are running.
Because I got to tell you the truth, even in New Jersey, what you're doing is called rude.
And next week on Full Measure, a story of big money and international intrigue. We'll introduce you to a man who turned evidence against one of the biggest and most secretive banks in the world, but he insists the real scandal isn't what happened to him, it's what happened to U.S. taxpayers. We hope you'll join us. Until next time, we'll be searching for more stories that hold powers accountable. Thanks for watching.